So look, Mark, thanks for taking some time to have a chat. The sun's shining out there as well, which obviously appreciate even more. Do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, where you cover, and probably what you were doing before you got into franchising or into Lockforce?
Yeah, so my name's Mark Hodge. I cover Chester and the Wirral area. Prior to becoming a Lockforce franchisee, I worked for a number of years in IT. I took a couple of years off because I was traveling around when I was working in IT, and I was away for the week effectively and just home for the weekend. And as you can imagine, my wife had enough of it after about 12 years. So I had a couple of years off. My wife has a business as well, so I helped my wife with her business, and then decided to take up a franchise.
Yeah, just typical. The line just froze a little bit there, but don't worry, we'll crack on. So you say then you took the decision to take the franchise?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, it was to be honest, it was something I looked at. I mean, prior to working in IT, to be honest, like quite a lot of franchisees and actually a lot of locksmiths, I was in the forces, and when I came out of the forces in '99. I did look at locksmith franchise at that point, but like any of these things, I kind of fell into a job and I just carried on with that job. So it was really picking up, from the point 20 years ago where I first looked into this, and I thought I would take the plunge this time.
Yes. Okay. So you weren't quite ready last time. You were thinking about it, but you just weren't quite ready.
Yeah. As I say, it was something that I looked into. I had applied for a lot of other jobs as well, and I got offered a job. Obviously, with such a massive change with coming out of the forces, then the opportunity to go straight into work was was quite appealing, and it was obviously there's less of a risk from that point. So that was the reason that at that time. And to be perfectly honest, I would say probably at the age I was, and also being quite honest, probably the maturity level I was at that time, it was probably a wise decision at that point, I would say.
Yeah, no. So yeah, without going to, I mean, how would you sum up? Because when did you joined? Let me just think. It would have been towards the start of last year, wasn't it?
It was January.
Was it January, February time? Yeah. So how would you sum up your first year? Because you've had a whole year, then we've had a bit of a funny period. But how would you sum it up?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been really good. It's I would say to a point, because I did quite a lot of research. It certainly met my expectations. There was no real shocks about sort of working in the franchise environment. I had done, as I say, quite a lot of research in and around that. Like any new business, obviously, had to spend a lot of time trying to, put the name out, do the marketing, and such like. But again, it wasn't something that I was unaware of before I came in, because my wife runs her own business. When I was in IT, I ran an IT business, a quite small scale one. Yeah. So for that side of it, the business side of it, I was pretty confident of where I was. The locksmithing side, to be perfectly honest, even now, there's quite a lot of jobs that are a surprise, because what a customer tells you and what you actually find is not the real part. So they're the most challenging things, but I quite enjoy that whole problem solving type of job anyway. So it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
You've really thrown yourself into locksmithing. I mean, you have to. I mean, you're a locksmith, but you're very disciplined on your practicing, and you've also now you've done the MLA exam as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite apparent when I first did the training with Carl, and talking in depth with Carl. It was quite apparent that there was a requirement for you individually to go away and do as much training as you can. There's certain things that you will have learned that you might not see for a couple of months, because some jobs are few and far between of that particular type. So I was very aware of that. What I decided to do is I scheduled at least an hour each day. Again, I did it this morning. To do some practice, and what I will do is I'll practice on different disciplines within locksmithing, within maybe the tools that I have, or in some cases I may get new tools that I'll practice, or I may even make some tools. So I've started making my own tools now as well. Yeah. So
very good.
Just from, I suppose, from a bit of experience, from things I picked up and such like. So and it was always quite important to me anyway, particularly from the background that I'd come from, to get some official recognised certification. So I was very keen, obviously, to become a member of the MLA exams. And I'm in the process of trying to get Lockforce Chester as a company approved now.
Yeah, very good, very good. Just sort of winding back the clock a little bit to when you joined. You said you'd done a lot of research. What were the factors that made you do? What made you overcome those concerns you had back in '99 to do it now? And what questions did you have to overcome, and maybe even talking to your partner to make that decision to join? Because it's a scary decision. It's a big decision, isn't it?
It is, and obviously there's the financial side of it, and I think from where I was in '99 to where I was in, say, 2018 when I first started looking at this, then I was more financially secure. So that was obviously, that side of it was less of a concern. It was the concern of having to start something again from scratch, both from a trade perspective and both from a business perspective. Having spent a number of years doing particular roles in IT, which I still had the opportunity if I wanted to go back to that at that time. So I had to make that decision quite quickly, because in the role that I was doing, it was a very fast moving role. So it's not something I would easily pick up the technology now because of the sort of the time lapse. But at that time, I was still in that position, and also just the way of working. To be honest, I knew that it wouldn't be the type of role where it would be a 9-to-5 job. I knew there would be some out of hours work. I think fortunately for myself and my wife, in previous roles, I've done shift work. I've done out of hour deployments and such like. So that part was a little bit easier. What I actually found within probably the first 3 months of being in the franchise was a challenge I hadn't even thought about beforehand. And that challenge really was about not looking at things, whether it be financial or the amount of jobs you get on a day-to-day basis, and to have more of a long-term view of it, because it's quite easy, I think, if you just look at it each day and say one day you don't get any jobs, you can start having a bit of a lull and feel a bit low. Whereas you look at it from the end of the month and you might have thought you've had a quiet month and realise, you look on the systems and think, well, actually, it's been a really good month here and I didn't realise. So that was a challenge as well, actually trying to get my head around that way of working and that way of thinking, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do think it's sometimes the quiet times that are the most challenging, not the busy times.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
and what you say there is also is keeping an eye on your numbers, but not necessarily on a daily basis. Just looking at how it aggregates. And I mean, so many times I talk to people, have you been this month? Oh, it's been all right. Oh, so you did X amount of thousand. Oh, did I? And it's like it's almost like a surprise that what has built up. Anyway, that's did you look at any other when you looked at us? Did you look else? Had you looked at other franchises, or whether it be locksmithing or otherwise?
Yeah, so I had a look at a couple of other locksmith franchises as well. Probably two of the main competitors, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, was there anything that stood out? I mean, obviously, I'll ask this question, but it's a leading. But was there anything that stood out? I mean, was there a reason why Lockforce was your choice in the end?
To be perfectly honest, it was the first engagement. So the first engagement that I had with Gail on the phone, it was, how can I put it? It was a lot more friendlier than the other two franchises. So I didn't get any further than the first engagement with the other two, simply because it was very much about, or the feeling I got was very much them wanting my money. That was their main drive, was to get the money. When I spoke with Gail with the initial, it was a much more friendlier approach, and much more about making sure I was the right person for the franchise, and the franchise was the right fit for myself as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. No, I don't often ask that, but I know people generally look at other businesses, and I don't worry too much about the competition, but it's always interesting because it stands out different for different reasons for different people. So did you also look at potentially doing it on your own?
I did doing it on my own as well, yeah. So it was something that I was considering. So they were the two routes, basically. I narrowed down the franchises to Lockforce, and then I looked at whether I would do it individually myself, or whether I would do it as a franchise. So that took quite a bit of time for me to understand, I would say, because the big thing I was actually told by family and friends, which was quite funny when I actually looked into it, was that doing it on my own would be a lot cheaper than doing it through a franchise. When I put the numbers down together, on a sheet, and I analysed the numbers, again, my IT background to look at numbers a little bit like that way, it wasn't the case at all. So certainly my friends and family had this impression that it was going to cost me, so much more money to become a franchise than if I had set up on myself. And I know through, obviously, the things that we've talked about, Sean, when I first started, from the business side of it, a lot of those pieces I wouldn't have had. So the startup would have been slower, so the revenue drive would have been slower. So ultimately, it's,
yeah. Well, no,
in my eyes anyway, it was turned.
Okay, and that's nice to hear. Obviously, it's nice to hear from my point of view, because it's all about creating the right opportunity for people and also articulating that. But if you took the money out of it, again, the value of the are you still pleased you came? It's not just financially, you thought it was absolutely the right decision for many reasons, but are you also the wider nature of the network? Although you're on your own, do you like the contact and the camaraderie? You're not shoulder to shoulder every day, are you? But do you like that aspect of it?
Yeah, no, and I think that's something that was quite important from the start of it, to be honest, to have that support network effectively, because the worst thing in the world, having experienced this on my first job that I ever did, having a really difficult first job, was if I'd have been on my own.
That's right. That's right. You did. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yeah.
So if I'd have been on my own doing that, then it would have been probably quite a traumatic evening, shall we say? But because of the support network, the ability to phone other people in the franchise to get advice on certain things, we've got a WhatsApp group where we can speak to each other from a professional side, but also, there's a bit of banter going on there, and a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke as well. So that support network's been invaluable.
Yeah, no, that's very good, very good. And it's interesting. One of the questions I'm normally asked: did anyone try and put you off joining a franchise? But I mean, you've answered that, because it's friends and family that normally say, they sort of just say it as the perception they see, but when you look at it a bit deeper, but it's interesting you answered that already. Did someone else try putting you off? And the answer was, yeah, they did.
Yeah.
It's a good job you're analytical, isn't it, really? So just going back to start, so the training side of things, you touched on it. You can't learn everything, but did you find that you were comfortable? But how did you find the training? I think you went through Carl, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
How did you find that training? Do you think it was at just about the right level, or you're constantly learning anyway? But how did you find the training? Simple question.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the training, it was a good balance between learning the techniques and actually practicing the techniques, not only in a classroom environment, but also on the job. So, during the time I was there, we went out on a number of jobs. Some of the jobs were planned, some of the jobs were unplanned. I experienced quite a variety of different types of jobs as well. Not only doing the locksmithing side, but also seeing how Carl, in my instance, how he approached customers, how he spoke to the customers, and there's always bits you can take from all the activity. And I've taken some of the stuff that Carl has done, and I've kind of obviously changed it a little bit and shaped it for the way I come across. But I've utilized that not only from the job perspective, but also from the customer engagement as well. So it gave me the footing. It covers all the techniques that you need to do, but obviously you need to put the time and effort in yourself. Nobody is going to be come off that type of training and be able to pick every single lock within a couple of seconds. You need to put the time and effort in. Hence why I still do the training every day myself. Practice.
Yeah, and it's funny you say, because I mean Carl is obviously one of our trainers, and he's the longest standing franchisee, but it's always the little things that he does as well, isn't it? It's some of the, it's not the big stuff sometimes, it's the like you said, these little tips and tricks that he shares. I don't even know he's sharing, he talks about it. I know I've got 2 or 3 tips or tricks off Carl that I've written down and utilized today.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I'm one of these people where because I've been on one of these management courses where I've been analysed to say what kind of person I am, and I'm one of the thinkers apparently. But I do sort of sit there and I'll take a lot of it in and think, well, how can I utilise this the best? And as you say, probably some of the stuff that Carl, that I was chatting with Carl, he probably never that it was something I would necessarily take on board and use. But yeah, there was a lots of little things, as well as the big things, and a lot of out of the box things that I decided that I would use as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting what you say. How can I? It's your thought process. How could I utilise that? That's such a good way to look at things, because sometimes they're not naturally anything to do with locksmithing, but you just think, how can I use that in my business? It's a great idea. Just then looking at life as a Lockforce franchisee, any standout highlights and any standout lowlights? The good, the bad, and the ugly. Just sort of bullet. Something that you would share with somebody. What's your most outstanding moment? Was it that first job?
Probably, yeah. I would say probably this success on the first job, and I think to be honest, looking back at it, I wouldn't have had it any other way, because it gave me so much confidence to then do anything else. How can I put it? We used to have a saying when I was in the army about you used to take your brave tablets and feel 10 foot tall.
Yeah.
It was very much like that, having done a very difficult job first time. I think, doing doing this, everybody will have a low point. You know, there's always low points. Less so on the job, I would say, to be honest. I would like to think myself as being fortunate that I've never had to walk away from a job. I would say probably the lowest points, as what I stated earlier, was particularly in the first, say, 3 months, and I had consecutive days where, you know, the phone hadn't rang, and you know, I wasn't getting any jobs, and I was too much on the fact of, you know, the day-to-day basis that I wasn't getting the jobs, as opposed from turning that around as I did after that. I kind of realized what I was doing, turning it around and thinking, well, okay, I've got this extra time now. How can I use this extra time to generate more business for the future? And that's the attitude that I now take.
Yeah, no, very good, very good. And then, you know, we've been through challenging times recently. You know, you've coped, adapted. Have you shielded a little bit? Is that right? Did you shield to start with, and then you got your balance?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I was very fortunate, to be honest, because a couple of days before the lockdown came in place, I had a call from a customer, and I'd been to this customer's house. I had genuinely had some concern about this guy's wife, because she was showing some symptoms. So I was a little bit concerned about that. He then phoned me 2 days later to say, look, I really want to make you aware my wife has obviously got this COVID-19. At that point, I rang my wife up. I told my wife to leave the house. I sent her packing, basically, so I'd only have to shield for 7 days myself. And then I shielded for the 7 days. And then, obviously, like everybody, we scrambled around to get all our PPE and stuff. And then after that, went back to work, changed the processes and procedures, the practices, you know, to make sure that I was being safe myself and keeping the customers safe.
Yeah, I mean, that last month was, June. I mean, for some reason, that last month just seemed to bounce back. I'm not saying everybody had it the same, but there does seem to be a little bit of a bounce back. But I think we're going to see a mixture over the coming months as things pan out. You know, it's the unknown that we don't really know.
It is true.
So, just to sort of, wrap things up a little bit, ultimately, has it delivered? Are you achieving what you wanted, and is it delivering what you wanted for you? You like, I know you like your bikes and you like your football. Looking on a year ago, are you in the right place, and do you see it going the right way?
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, as I said to you before, I spent 12 years without a real work-life balance. I thought I had it at the time, but clearly I didn't, and clearly my wife didn't think that. And I would say now I'm in a position to have that work-life balance, and whilst particularly at the moment, because of what's happened, I am probably less inclined to not be available for work. I would say probably towards the end of last year, I had got to a stage where I was, planning my weeks ahead, and to the point where I would perhaps say take a night off, take a weekend off, etc. A lot sooner than I thought, to be honest, because as I say, I did a lot of research into all this, and I was, I came in with my eyes open. I said to my wife, don't expect me to have any time off for the first 18 to 2 years, because I'll be looking to build my business up. I would say I'm fortunate. Maybe it's not fortune. Maybe it's more than fortune. But I feel fortunate that I was in a position that the business built up, sooner than I thought it would. Certainly within the first 12 months.
You went to the TT races, didn't you?
This year, last year I went to the TT races. Yeah. Obviously they were cancelled this year, but Yeah,
everything's cancelled.
everything's been cancelled. Yeah, and unfortunately for me, the football has been cancelled. It was cancelled for a period, but
let's not talk about that.
Yeah. So once we get over this dip, and however long that will take, then I'll look back, obviously, to get back into that work-life balance that I wanted to get to, and that I did end up getting to last year.
No, brilliant. And in terms of anyone looking to join, whether it be us or a franchise, words of wisdoms, pearls of wisdoms, things that you might wish you'd known before you joined, or anything, any pearls of wisdom?
To be honest, all I would say is people need to do the research beforehand, and they also need to have realistic expectations. I think the worst thing you could do coming into any business, not just a franchise, but coming into any business, is to think it's going to be instant money. It shouldn't all be about the financial aspects of it. I think a franchise, looking at franchises, gives you an opportunity, particularly if it's something to do something that you really want to do, and have the support and the network there to help you achieve that. And then the financial aspects will come with it. I think there's too many people who I've spoke to outside of franchises who have looked at some franchise. So some friends of mine, after I became a franchisee, they decided that it might be a good idea to become a franchise of something, not necessarily as a locksmith, but something else, because they saw that, or they thought I had pretty instant success. Obviously, they don't see the work behind it, to get to that point. So that's what I would say. People need to join a franchise for the right reasons. It shouldn't all be about an instant financial reward. Because I think if that's the case, I think there's a possibility that franchisee will fail, because if they don't see they're getting the returns immediately, then they'll start getting low. But that would be my biggest piece of advice.
It's matching the needs of the individual with what a franchise can and can't achieve. And do you think we were quite realistic with what is achievable? Because we don't sit here selling the dream. We try and sell the reality and expect people to probably exceed it. But how did you feel that from that point of view?
Yeah, so I actually did essays as what you guys had done.
You did a what?
I did a similar exercise. So when I came down to Henley to do the business training, and we were talking about potential revenue streams over the first, second, and third year, I'd already done that myself, and my predictions were higher than yours, which surprised me, to be honest, because I thought I was trying to be fairly realistic in my predictions, but I was slightly higher on what I was looking to achieve. So I think I think you definitely set the level at the right level as far as I was concerned, and I think that then enables people to be realistic about things. Like any job, there's more to it than just the financial reward. You also look at your family life. You look at your work-life balance,
health, well-being,
the ability. It all adds up. The ability to have such a level of flexible working is it's quite unique, I would say. From that perspective, because you can go out and do a job, and it might be quite a quick job to do. You might do a couple of quick jobs in a day, and think, well, I've only worked a small portion of the day, and then the rest of the day potentially, you could do other things if you really wanted to. You could spend time with your family. You could, go out on your motorbike and or whatever, that type of thing.
Yeah, I suppose that is not that you're right. It's a different way of work. You've earned your money. Be satisfied, or you've ticked off what you need to do for the day. Be happy with it. Don't feel you're a fraud by not working, sort of thing.
And that's one of the thing. Another thing that sometimes you think that. Sometimes you get to the end of the day and think, I haven't really worked for a long period of time. But as I say, you shouldn't look at it like that. I just think it's one of those unique jobs where you can go to a job, you can be there for a very short amount of time, or you could be there for a long amount of what that job is. And the other side of it that I'm sure most locksmiths would say is it's a rewarding job. It's a rewarding job helping people and seeing that end result. A lot of jobs, particularly a lot of jobs that I've done, certainly in my IT background, I never saw the end result. So, I was always doing I was a little cog in a massive wheel, whereas doing this, you get to help people, you get to meet some very interesting people.
Rich and famous, rich and poor.
You can do, yeah. All walks of life, yeah.
No, brilliant. So you wouldn't do anything different. I think you said that earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, not at all.
Brilliant. Look, Mark, I appreciate your time. It's a Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure to have you in the network, and keep driving forward.
Yeah, will do. Thank you, Sean.
Cheers, Mark.